Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler. I'm your host and the founder of this movement, the Order of Man movement, and this podcast, and I want to welcome you here. If you've been with us for any amount of time, really thank you for the support, what you've been sharing with us, sharing with other people, implementing in your own lives is amazing to see, amazing to hear, and that's why we've created this movement. If you are new, I want to welcome you. Glad you're tuning in. This is a Friday Field Note, so you're going to hear from me for about 20 to 30 minutes on some different ideas and thoughts that have been running through my brain. But we also have an interview podcast where we interview guys like Jocko Willink and Tim Tebow and David Goggins and Tim Kennedy and Matthew McConaughey. And I say it every week, the guys that we've had on the podcast are phenomenal. It's my goal to bring incredibly successful men in their own right onto the podcast and extract some of their hard-fought and hard-earned wisdom so that we can use that in our own lives. I've got a good one for you. I think today I'm going to be talking about battle rhythm, which is the rhythm of life, finding rhythm, finding a groove, finding flow, even you may have heard. We're going to talk about why it's so important. We're going to also talk about some pitfalls of not finding your battle rhythm or developing your battle rhythm. And then I'm going to share with you 5 strategies for creating a battle rhythm in your life that's going to help you with maximum efficiency. Before I get into that, I want to let you know that part of this battle rhythm, I think, is making sure that you have a good band of brothers around you, all working alongside of you, all with their own rhythm, holding you accountable, holding you to task. When we're talking about rhythm, it's a little bit like running a marathon. And it's nice to have somebody in front of you who's pacing you, or you're pacing rather, where they might be going a little faster than you normally would, but you pace off of them so that you can keep that rhythm and you can keep that pace where you need it to be. I found that to be true in life. If you don't have anybody that you're pacing, you don't have anybody either to the side of you or out front of you, it's going to be really hard to figure out what pace is right for you and how quickly you can go into career aspirations, relational goals, fitness, objectives, and that sort of thing. So our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council, is going to allow you to have somebody to march in step with that can help you keep pace, that can help that keep that rhythm in place. And we open up next week, middle of next week. So if you want to check that out and learn more about what we're doing inside of this exclusive brotherhood that thousands of men have joined now, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. Again, that's orderofman.com/Iron Council. All right, guys, let's get into the concept of battle rhythm. There is a natural rhythm of life that once you find and I keep saying find. I don't want to say find. I want to say develop, because find is a little bit more passive. It's too passive for me. Develop is something that's a little bit more assertive. And it's very, very important that we're assertive, that we're proactive, and that we go after what we want. So let's not use find, which is what I was using. We'll use develop. But it's important that you develop your battle rhythm in life, that there's a rhyme, there's a reason, there's a purpose. You're moving with intentionality in your life. If you don't have that, you're going to be tossed to and fro based on what culture says you should or shouldn't be doing. You're going to be tossed around based on what other people's objectives are. Other people's problems are going to become your priority. And then ultimately, you're going to be living your life for somebody else. And I see that so often with men. They're doing all the quote unquote right things, but they're not fulfilled. They're not satisfied. That's because they're marching to the beat of someone else's drum. They've been told they need to behave a certain way and act a certain way and do certain things and be engaged in certain hobbies. And then when something comes up, they deal with other people's fires at their own expense. It's not healthy. It's not good. So you need to create and develop your own battle rhythm. And here's why. Because if you don't, number one, things are going to get missed, right? Things are going to fall through the cracks. You don't have systems in place. You don't have processes for managing all of the information, all of the tasks, all of the objectives, all of the daily chores and things that you're expected to do, again, on a daily basis. And over time, because you're juggling so many balls in the air with such sporadicness to it, you're going to miss things. You're going to drop a couple of those balls every once in a while, and people are going to be hurt. They're going to be left out. You're going to miss opportunities. That's the second one. So you have things are getting missed. Number two, opportunities are going to be overlooked. You're so busy. You're so inundated. You're so consumed with everything else that's going on. You don't have structure. You don't have organization to your life. And so even if an opportunity smacked you across the face, you would not be able to capitalize on it because of your sporadic nature, because you're crazy, because you don't have things locked in, because you don't have a plan, and there's no flow. There's no system to your life. Number three is there's going to be a lot of inefficiencies. Things are going to take longer than they need to. Projects are going to go past deadlines. You're not even going to know what the projects are because, again, there's no processes in place to ensure that you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing, and you're producing maximum results. And the last one is that you are going to expend so much energy in trying to stay up with life. If you're exhausted and you're tired and you're beat down and you don't have energy to do anything else at the end of the day except for sit your ass on the couch and pull up the latest game or the latest Netflix series or documentary that you're watching, that's not going to work for you, right? You're here in Order of Man because you want to do something meaningful and significant and productive with your life. But if you're gassed because you have no rhythm and it's super inefficient in your life, then you're going to expend all this energy and it's going to go towards nothing, absolutely nothing. If we're going to expend any amount of energy, we want to make sure it's focused, it's clear, and it's directed. So when you create a battle rhythm for your life, number one is you no longer have things that get missed or fall through the cracks. You're on top of everything. You make all of your calls, you make all of your appointments, you manage all the expectations, you deliver on what you promise. We know being a man of your word, obviously, as a man is crucial. This is what happens when you have a rhythm. Number two, opportunities are going to present themselves and you will be in the prime position mentally, emotionally, physically, even financially to capitalize on opportunities. I've had investment opportunities that have come into my life that I have been able to capitalize on because I have my finances in order due to some of the things that I'm going to share with you here in a bit. If you have rhythm in your life and you have systems in place to ensure that you're maximizing efficiency, you're going to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. Number one, you'll recognize them. Number two, you'll be in the position to work on them. Number three, if you have rhythm in your life, you're going to be hyper efficient. This is important because if you're hyper efficient, then that is going to allow you to be present in moments. If you find yourself distracted or thinking about other things when you should be at the baseball game with your son, for example, or out on a date with your wife and significant other, and there's distraction there, that is a sign of inefficiency. What is happening is you're allowing other facets of life, and they are important. Let's take career, for example. And because you were inefficient with your work schedule, now that time is spilling over and bleeding into your family life. And that's not okay. You know it's not okay. You don't want that to happen. Your family knows it's not okay. But if you're inefficient, it's going to bleed, and then everything's going to spill over each other, and it's all going to become tainted. If I were to take a glass of water and put it on the desk, a clear glass of water, and I was to take red dye and I was able to drip 2 or 3 drops, it wouldn't take long before everything is stained in that water. That's what happens when we're inefficient. We come home, and instead of being present and available for our family, that is all tainted with our work stresses. We should be able to leave that at the door. And the only way to do that is to be hyper efficient at work. I know there's extenuating circumstances. I know that there's deadlines and things that need to be hit that would spill over into family time. I understand that. Those are exceptions, not the rule. And then the last one is you're going to have lots of energy. Lots of energy. People might even comment, hey, what have you been doing? You feel lighter. You feel like you have more energy. You feel more excited about or engaged in what we're doing. Well, that's part of the rhythm. Is you're going to build in systems. Again, we talk a lot about that already. I'll break that down in a minute. But you're going to build in systems that are going to keep you at a maximum energy potential so that you can focus on the things that matter. So let's get into 5 key strategies for creating and developing more of a battle rhythm in your life. And by the way, why do I say battle? I say battle because it's a fight. It's easy to fall into complacency. It's easy to fall into coast mode. It's easy to be lazy and immediate gratification and want all the result without the effort. It's a battle. It's a battle that you need to fight with yourself. It's not typically with somebody else. It may manifest itself that way, but typically it's a battle with yourself. It's lack of discipline, lack of clarity, lack of focus, lack of drive, lack of determination, lack of processes and systems that are keeping you from accomplishing what you want. You have to go to war with yourself. And that's not to beat yourself up or think negatively about yourself or be overly critical about what you have going on. but you have to realize there's a battle against what I've dubbed the natural man. And that guy's weak and he's lazy and he's cowardly and he wants the results without the effort. And you and I, we're going to fight against that. Number one, you have to live your life. Okay. When you're creating a battle rhythm, it's your battle rhythm. It's not my rhythm. So we hear things from guys like Jocko is a great example. Get up at 4:34 every single morning. That's great. That's fine. I don't get up at 4:34. I get up around 6 o'clock on average. That changes depending on the morning, but I get up about 6 o'clock a.m. on average. That works for me. That works for my sleep schedule. That works for my circadian rhythm. That works with all the testing I've done. That works for what I need to accomplish in the morning. That works for what I have going on throughout the rest of the day. That works for me. The activities and interests that I'm engaged in work for me. I've got a bunch of hunting gear. You can't see it. It's behind the camera because I'm going on a hunt. I'll be gone for about 10 days and we're going to go hunt on Molokai and the Big Island of Hawaii. And that works for me. Does every man need to be a hunter? No, you don't. If it's interesting to you, you should pursue it. Does every man need to be Jocko? Does every man need to be David Goggins? Does every man need to be Cam Hanes? No. You can try those things. You can dabble into the world of what those men that you're inspired by are interested in, but you don't have to, and you're not obligated to pursue that just because that one guy on Instagram you follow does. It has to be your rhythm. So if 4:34 doesn't work every single morning, that's fine. Get up at 5:30. Get up at 6:30. I don't get up at noon for all I care. The principle is that you get up and you get your work done. It's not so much the time, but the principle. So guys, live your life. There was probably a time where I would have tried to compel you or convince you that doing it our way is the best way. It might be for some men and it might not be for others. The principles we teach are important. The way in which we implement them is going to vary on a case-by-case basis. Do what works for you. Stop living through me. Stop living through other influencers or athletes or scholars stop living your life vicariously through them. This is one of the things that drives me nuts about professional and even college sports. These guys they'll buy jerseys. They're like $150 or more. If they're rare ones or even more signed or something, they'll buy jerseys with another man's name on the back. It's like, what are you doing? Really, what are you doing? If you want to be excited about baseball and football or any sport, by all means, if it's a great way for you to enjoy and have some fun with the guys, or you like it, or you have an affinity with it, or maybe you were part of that team in another life, by all means. But why are we so vested in other people's lives? It's crazy. It's crazy. We do it on social media. My phone's over there, but we're following all these guys, and it's like we cling to every single word and every single thing that they do, and then when they mess up, we're like, oh, our world gets shattered because we're too vested in their lives instead of our own lives. Be vested in your life. Live your life. Use these guys as examples of how you can show up, but do it in your way. Because if you do it in your way, you're going to be able to flow easier. If you feel like you're trying to grind through an activity you're not interested in just because so-and-so does it, it's not a great way to live. Number 2, develop and create systems for everything that you repeatedly do. If there's a one-off type thing, no big deal. But if you find yourself sending, for example, the same email to people over and over and over and over again, just create a canned response in Google. You can Google it on how to do it. Create a canned response. So when anybody asks that question or sends that type of email to you, all you do is click one button, sends out that canned response. It's a thoughtful, good response for them, but you're not having to type it up every single time. That's a small example of what a system would look like. The beauty of that is now we just recaptured a couple minutes, 2-3 minutes. Man, you do that 10 times a day, 20 times a day, you're looking at saving half an hour to an hour every single day, not answering an email that you've answered a million times. And besides that, there's not only the physical time element of it, there's the emotional energy of it. So if you do something repeatedly, create a system, create a process, create a standard operating procedure, share it with people. That's a little bonus there, is delegate, so you're not having to do anything. I don't want to do something that takes me an hour. If I can outsource it to somebody that it'll take 10 minutes, and let's say I could pay somebody to do some work for $20 an hour, but my hours are worth $100, I would make that trade all day long. All day long. You'd be an idiot not to. So we're going to create systems, create processes, delegate what we can. And by the way, if we create systems, it's more easily to delegate. If you don't create systems, then you're the one who's the bottleneck. You're the one who has to do the training. You're the one that has to be engaged with these guys. You're the one that has to answer every email. You're the one that has to do all of the onboarding for new team members. Like, you're the guy. Don't be the guy. You're the problem. You want to get out of the way. You want to remove the cork or the bottleneck. And how do you do that? Systems, processes. Then when your subordinates, your clients, your colleagues, your coworkers, your friends, your family members, your kids come to you and say, Dad, how do I do this? Here's the SOP. Slide it over to them or tell them where to get it, and then go figure it out for themselves. Guys, we need to create systems and processes. If you're going to the gym, for example, and you're just kind of haphazardly doing like whatever you think you should do, that's a waste of time. You need a system in place. Hire a trainer. Jump online and look at one or two podcasts. Mind Pump Media is one that comes to mind. Johnny Loretti is my personal trainer. These guys are part of my system. I don't spend time thinking about what I'm going to be doing at the gym. It's not a thing I do. I pull up the app. Johnny tells me what I'm going to do and what he programmed for me, and then I do it. And that's the beauty of creating systems. Guys, the third thing we need to be aware of when it comes to creating this battle rhythm is that you have to have healthy boundaries in place. We've talked about this a lot, but so many men overlook this. And I said it earlier, they allow other people's problems to become their priorities. You should not do that. Now, look, there are certain cases where it could be. If your child comes to you and has a difficult day at school, maybe they're being bullied, maybe they got into a fight, maybe they did something illegal and they're in some trouble. Like, there's a lot of things where you would make their problems your priority because those are actually your problems. But not everything that everybody is going through at all times needs to be a priority of yours. And this is where healthy boundaries comes into play. This is hard for the quote unquote nice guy who wants to serve other people and he wants to make sure everything's okay and he wants to smooth everything over and he doesn't want to rock the boat. It's hard to set up boundaries, but if you don't do that, then you're hindering people because you're not allowing them to figure things out on their own, and you're hindering yourself and the people you could otherwise serve if you would have had healthy boundaries in place. So if you notice yourself getting upset about the way somebody talks with you, or the way somebody comes into your office, barges into your office, or the way that somebody might perform or show up at work, or something that has to do with you, then you need to figure out what the boundary is. For example, if it's barging into the office, a simple boundary is literally closing and locking the door. That might not be enough because sometimes people knock, and so you may have to communicate that if the door is closed, I am not to be disturbed. That's a boundary. Now, when people inevitably do it, there has to be consequences for the boundary. And I'm not saying that you need to punish them, but they need to know that you're willing to uphold it. So, for example, if the door's locked and closed, and I tell my colleagues that I can't be bothered if the door's closed, and they knock on the door, then I'm not going to answer it. Unless the office is burning down, I'm not opening that door. Now I might say, hey, I might yell through the door, busy, we'll talk later, but I'm not going to open that door. That's what nice guys do. They go over, they're like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I don't know if I can do this. And then they go over and open the door, and that person, when the door's open, they stick their foot in the door and they start to wiggle themselves into your life and into their schedule, and it creates real problems. If that person takes up 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour of your day, that's an hour that you can't do your work. What does that do? Spills over into your family life. We talked about that earlier because you didn't have the balls to uphold your boundaries. Guys, know what they are. Communicate them effectively. You can do it in a kind way. You don't need to be a dick about it, but you can tell people, hey, look, if the door's closed, I can't be bothered right now. I'm in an important meeting, or I'm having a discussion, or I'm doing notes, or I'm working on a task. If my door's open, come in all day long, come in. But establish those boundaries, know what they are, and be willing to communicate those things. Number 4, you have to have some margin in the middle, because as much as I talk about boundaries, life is going to happen. One of the kids is going to break their arm. You're going to have a fire at work that you need to put out. Somebody missed the deadline. You're going to have somebody who maybe did something illegal that you need to address. There's going to be a health issue. One of your family members needs you to hurry and meet them somewhere. Look, we're talking about boundaries, but certain things come up that are your responsibility. So we need to create margin. And what I mean by that is if you have a meeting from 9 to 10, then 10 to 11, then 11 to 12, then 12 to 1, then 1 to 2, and so on, there's no margin in that whatsoever. This is why doctors are notoriously horrible for keeping their schedules. They don't know time management. They don't. They have somebody else manage all their time. They have somebody else manage their clock. I don't think most of them don't care. I think they do, but they're horrible at time management and boundaries. If they were respectful of their patients, they would, for an hour consult, let's say, they would actually block out an hour and 15 minutes. And they would do that because one of their previous meetings could have gone long. Maybe this one goes a little bit longer. Plus they have notes and charts that they need to update and address. They're not planning their time very well. And they're not treating you with the level of respect you as a patient, you as a human being deserves. So if you're a doctor and you're listening to this, hear me. I know there's extenuating circumstances. I know some of you work in an emergency and ER. That's different. It's not what I'm talking about. But if you have a schedule, you know your schedule. And at that point, really what you're trying to do is just make a bunch of money and not care too much about your clients. But guys, you got to have margin throughout your day. If one meeting goes a little long or somebody comes in early or you have to address a problem in between appointments that comes up, where are you going to do that? And if you don't do it, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get stressed out. You're going to get pissed off. You're going to become irritable and impatient. And that's going to be taken out on the people you love the most. It's always your family. It's always your kids. It's always your wife. Don't allow that to be the case. Create margin. Hour and a half meetings, hour meetings are actually hour and a half long meetings. When I close out meetings, I don't close meetings on the hour. If I have a meeting from at 10, it isn't done at 11. It's done at 10:55. And usually that means it's done at 11 because that's what happens. You know it. And my next meeting isn't until half an hour after that because I have things I need to do and things that may have come up in that appointment. And that allows me the freedom and flexibility to deal with it without stressing me out. Number 5, we have to anticipate changes. One thing that I hear a lot from guys is they'll say, Ryan, I have a sporadic schedule and I want to create consistency or a rhythm in my life, but my work schedule is so chaotic and crazy, I just don't know what to do. Yes, you do. Okay, barring the few exceptions, most of you know your schedule at least a week in advance. And it might be graveyard, it might be swing, it might be day shift, it might be kind of all over the place, and maybe it changes every week. But you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days ahead of time what it looks like. And so what we can do is we can anticipate that our life isn't always as cookie cutter as we would hope that it would be. Another great example, if you're on vacation, many guys will say, well, I'm on vacation, so I'm not going to work out. Adapt. You know you're going on vacation. You can't do a little research into a gym near you. Or another one on vacation. Oh, well, it's harder to eat healthy on vacation. It's not harder to eat healthy. You're just using that as an excuse. And trust me, I do it too. So I'm not pointing fingers, but let's call it for what it is. It's not that it's harder. It's just that we're unwilling to exert the amount of work that it's going to take to think about it ahead of time. But isn't that an amazing thing when you do? Isn't it? Like I'm leaving. I told you I'm leaving out of town. I've got all my podcasts recorded. I've got all of our meetings in the Iron Council delegated. I've got everything packed over here 2 days early. Like I'm anticipating that I'm going to be gone, and I'm putting all the ducks in a row to make sure that when I'm gone, I can be present in the hunt with my friends and my son, my oldest son, and that everything over here is going to be taken care of. I don't want to be thinking about doing podcasts while I'm on my hunt in Hawaii. I don't want to be wondering, who's going to cover this call because I didn't talk to them. I anticipate what's going on. I plan for what's going on, and then I execute. And that's a beautiful thing, especially for men who have a hard time turning it off on vacation. You can't turn it off because it's reliant upon you to be standing by the light switch, keeping the dang thing on. It's like there's a spring in the light switch, and if you leave and let go, that spring just pushes it to the off switch. That's wrong. Many of us, because of that spring, will go over and we'll just hold our finger so that the light never shuts off. But you're going to be gone sometimes. You're going to want to be gone sometimes. You're going to want to focus on other things. So take the dang spring out of the switch and or delegate holding it up for somebody else, and you go do your thing. Anticipate things are going to come up. Put the systems in place like we talked about in point number 2, and let yourself relax. Let yourself enjoy. If you have a sporadic schedule, Sometimes you're going to wake up at noon, sometimes 2, sometimes 7 at night. You know that. So instead of saying I'm going to wake up at 3 a.m. every day, because that might not work, you might say I'm going to wake up 2 hours before I'm supposed to be into work. It's going to give me a 45-minute workout. It's going to give me 20 minutes of getting cleaned up and shaved up and ready to go. And then it's going to give me a 30-minute commute. That equaled 2 hours, but close enough. Okay? You guys understand what I'm talking about. Guys, it's really, really important that we create this battle rhythm. And I told you why. Things get missed, opportunities overlooked, inefficiencies abound, and ultimately too much energy is expended. We want to be lean, mean, fighting machines, as the saying goes. We want to be efficient. We want to be effective. We want to do what we want to do. We also want to have fun doing it. Creating systems, living your life, not somebody else's, having healthy boundaries, creating margin in the middle, and then anticipating changes is going to allow you to create the battle rhythm that you need to succeed in every facet of your life. And on a parting note, guys, make sure you check out the Iron Council. It opens up next week, June 15th. You can do that at orderaman.com/Iron Council. Orderaman.com/Iron Council. All right, guys, we will be back next week. Until then, and by the way, on the same note, that podcast is already scheduled, already recorded, already ready to go. So I'm not having to worry about it. I'm going to be gone. I can enjoy my time and create the rhythm that I want in my life. All right, guys, let's go out there, take action, create that battle rhythm, become the men we are meant to be.